right, we're live again. Good morning, everybody. This is Jose Trujillo. I'm the world's greatest living artist. And this morning I wanted to talk to you guys. It's barely 8 in the morning where I'm at, my neck of the woods. I wanted to talk to you guys about a quote that I love, I hold very dear in my heart. This quote is by the great Claude Monet. He's a great, source of inspiration for me and many, many artists I know. He was the first big modern painter. He was an impressionist, right? He's an impressionist, but his stuff was so modern that people just rejected his stuff left and right. Now we look at it and we're like, oh yeah, that's a great artist. But we forget that his stuff was rejected in the 1800s. His stuff was rejected very much all over 19th century, and it wasn't really accepted till later on, around the 1900s. It was when it started to get accepted. So, what do I tell you this for? Well, let me tell you why. Okay? I think that this guy is so on point. I don't know if because he had a lot of pain through painting or whatever it was. He has a beautiful quote that I want to share with you. Okay? The quote is, when you're painting something, you cannot name what you're looking at. You cannot name what you're looking at or what you're painting, right? You cannot name it. Just think about this for a second. You cannot name what you're painting. Now, he didn't finish the quote, okay? He didn't finish it. He left it open because that's how this type of teachings are. When masters, that's why they become masters, really. I believe that they become masters when they go beyond the craft, and it's no longer craft. It becomes something more spiritual. Just think about that for a second. It's a very zen quote. It's a very zen approach. Zen, spiritual, whatever you want to call it. I don't care what tradition it is. I don't care if it's from Catholicism, Buddhism, whatever it is. It's a higher state of consciousness. Okay? When you look at something, you cannot name it. When you paint something, you cannot name it. This is very zen. It reminds me of a quote by the great Rumi, another spiritual teacher, right? Because I think some painters become spiritual teachers whether they know it or not. Osho had said that too, but I don't want to confuse you with. I don't want to throw names. The great Rumi said, when a boy sees, or when a kid, right, sees a child, I think it's a child, learns about the word bird, he or she, right, stops seeing the bird. Okay, just think about that one for a second. When a child learns the word bird, they stop looking at the bird. It's a tremendous teaching right there. Because now the child is associating, has disattached, right? Has created duality, right? Has disattached, has split the bird and the name, and now it's concentrating on the name, and now has an identification of the name, right? Now the bird is an identity of its own. The bird is one, the actual bird is one, but now the child doesn't see the bird anymore. This is the same reason why Greek mythology came out with Narcissus. I think it was Greek. the man that saw his reflection on the water. It's now split, right? It's no longer in being. It's now in outside, not inside anymore. It's outside now. It's looking at the reflection. The name bird is a reflection of the bird. It's just a concept. Now, why am I throwing all this high-end spiel? High-end spiel. Because I believe that when someone becomes a master at what they do, they go through that, and they go to those high levels of awareness. It is a very spiritual high level of awareness. The great Jesus Christ had already told us, and many other sages before him and after him have told us, don't what's the word? Oh my God, I forgot the word. It's when you identify something. It's judgment. When you pass judgment, you're no longer seeing the person. You're identifying the person with something else, right? Every time you create judgment, you're no longer seeing what things are. You're seeing a reflection of them. It is the same idea, more or less, comes from that same root of the cave. Who was it? Was it Plato? Was it Plato or was it Socrates? I don't remember. One of those old farts. The idea of the cave, right? You're in a cave, there's light up there, and all you can see is the shadows. Because you're no longer, you're in the dark. You can no longer see. Anyways, the reason I'm throwing all this spiel is because, look, Monet reached to that level as an artist and as a human being. Now, I don't know if he reached to that level consistently, to the point where people that reach that level consistently, we call them saints, right? There's traditions of it. We call them saints. Some people call them awakened beings. Other people call them, I don't know, all kinds of names we have for that, right? But it's people that reach that state consistently. They live in that state. They don't just touch it, right? But I believe that Monet got there and touched it. I don't know if he lived there, but he touched it. So that's why he was able to say, look, when you're painting something, you can't name it. Because if you name it, you start judging it. And therefore, you're not painting it anymore. You're painting an effing reflection of it. You're only painting a reflection of it. You're not actually painting it. This is why I believe he opposed to realism. Not because he didn't oppose realism in his true form. He opposed the concept of realism because it became a concept, right? Every time something becomes a concept, now you're messing with the concept and not the actual subject. You're no longer interested in the subject. You're interested in the concept of the subject, which is the tragedy. It's the tragedy of the human being. I believe that's the tragedy of the human being. We get stuck in the minutia. We get stuck in the shadows of people rather than the people. We get stuck in the past of the people, in the future of the people, in the meaning of people. We look at someone and we start judging whether we know it or not. We start thinking about all of the things that involve the human being. And the relation to the world and to ourselves. Is it a threat? Is this person not a threat? Is this person a good person? Is this person a bad person, right? Is this person a loyal person? Is this person not loyal? Poor, rich, happy, angry, sad, right? Those of you out there who think you're all hippied out and you're all like super cool and whatnot, you only like happy people. There's a problem with that too, okay? The master welcomes all. That's one of my favorite sayings from a book called the Tao Te Ching. The master accepts all. And anyways, I'm like rambling because it's awesome. It's 8 in the morning and I can say whatever I want. 8 in the morning. So anyways, guys, this is the cool thing about Monet. Reaching that level, right? Not a level that you try to reach. He got there by default. It was a default. right? I don't think he was trying to reach anything. It was a default. I'm not trying to discredit him reaching that point, that state of awareness, but he got there by default, because all great masters get there by default. They find without seeking. So when he starts painting something, right? When Monet paints something, he's not looking, he's looking at it without judgment. He's not trying to name it. In other words, he's not saying there's a tree here, there's some leaves here. There's no. That's why he used to say patches of light. See, he disassociated. He tried to disassociate as much as possible from the concept. The concept of a tree, the concept of water. That's why he came up with that saying. When he paints patches of light. He said it's like patches of light. Because he's like, oh, there's yellow there. Oh, okay, there's yellow. He didn't go, there is a line that is, I don't know, there's a chair, and then there's the reflection of the chair, or this, or that, or whatever. No, he's like, there's yellow there, right? Oh, there's a darker brown here. Okay. Oh, there's a purple here. Yeah, okay. And then he in other words, he was quilting it. See, I loved his approach, because he fragmented the object or the subject rather than fragment in his mind. I hope I make any sense with this. With the concept. When you conceptualize something, you're fragmenting it. You're fragmenting it. It's only when you conceptualize things that you fragment them. You know, you say, "Oh yeah, that's George. George is 30 years old." Right? You're fragmenting it. You're breaking it apart. George is no longer a human being. This is why the chaos of life happens, right? And I'm not saying people are not pragmatic about it, but we go beyond that. What I mean pragmatic is that you want George the doctor to operate on you, not George the mechanic, right? There's this pragmatic, there's real things. But when it comes to experiencing another person, George the doctor, George the mechanic, and George the pilot, right? Are all three George? No, they're all three human beings. They're beings. This is another tragedy in I call them tragedies in human existence. We fragment things, right? George is 30 years old. He's wealthy. He's a father of three. He boats to this party. He also collects this type of stuff. He's a hobbyist. This is his hobby. He's very astute in business, and on and on and on. And he had a divorce. This is his second wife. And all of these dynamics. Those are extensions of George. Those are not George, right? Those are extensions of George. They are not George. And Monet understood this when he was painting. He saw the tree, and he didn't fragment the tree, right? He didn't go, this is an oak, and the oak has this type of leaves, and the oak receives light this way, and the oak this, and the oak that, and on and on and on. And in order to paint the oak, I must understand the oak, and I must understand the oak and the relationship of the oak with everything else around its nature, and on and on and on. Of course not. He saw the oak as well as he saw the sky, and there was no distinction. This is why the Impressionists didn't use lines. This is another reason why I think it was a very esoteric approach of them to not use lines, because they were not fragmenting anything. They were not cutting anything. Okay, I believe this is one of the reasons why, whether they knew it or not, I think it was a very, very esoteric approach to painting. It's very high end, very pinky up, as Patrick and SpongeBob would say. It's a very high-end approach to painting. unlike nothing had people seen before or experienced before. They cut the lines from painting. They removed the lines, and they said, what if everything was inclusive? What if everything was together? What if the purple in the sky was also in the water? What if the blue in the water was also in the person's face? What if all of it was together? What if everything was inclusive? They created a utopian world in their paintings. Fucking good. That's what they did. They saw the world as it is. Not as they imagined it, but as it is. Using color to describe it. They used color, they were colorists, right? They used color to describe their experience in the world. Not to photograph it, not to record it, not to mimic it, perhaps to record it, but not to mimic it. They were not hyper-realists. They were not realists. They had no intention in doing anything realistic. I think the level of realism they had was just because it was so ingrained in them, because that's the way that they were supposed to paint. And even if they were painting something new, that element of realism was still going to haunt them because it was part of the times, right? It was part of the times. Just like clothing, right? Even if they were very modern, very contemporary people, their clothing was going to still look of the time period, right? They were still going to eat the things from the time period, dress from the time period, and on, even if they were saints or whatever, right? That wasn't going to change just because their awareness changed. So in the same way, their painting, all of the Impressionists, I believe, Renoir, Monet, even the crazy Degas, because Degas was more crazy than all of them, Alfred Sisley, Camille Pissarro, and the post-Impressionists as well. Gustave Caillebotte was one of the Impressionists with them too. But the post-Impressionists like Van Gogh, Gauguin, Cézanne was even he was an Impressionist and a post-Impressionist. That guy was a boss, So anyways, these guys removed line, right? They removed line, and I thought it was a very interesting thing. It was an observation I made when I was looking at the artwork. I was like, and I mean, it's written also, right? It's in history, but if you experience the work of the Impressionists, especially of that of Monet, and especially of Monet's later years, the years in his garden in Giverny, when you see the atmospheric, almost foggy effect, right? Extremely atmospheric, foggy effect, and not just due to his cataract in his eyes, but just the level of awareness as an artist, right? He essentially was Mark Rothko before Mark Rothko was invented, and you could see it in the water lilies. And that, my friends, I believe, was painting in a state of grace. Okay? And I believe that this is one of the reasons why artists, you have different types of artists. You have conceptual artists who go deep into the psyche and create concepts. You have, like Picasso, very conceptual. And then you have, and even Picasso had moments like that. That's why Picasso said, if I could just remove my head, right, I would paint better. If I could remove my head to paint, because he understood that concepts, even though it was the new thing, even though it was very Freudian ideas that, whatever they were going through, like Dali too, even though there were modern, very avant-garde ways of thinking, they were a hindrance to the art method, to the true method of art, which is esoteric. The true method of art, I believe, is esoteric. True art is non-thinking. I know I may get a lot of slack for this. I know a lot of people are not going to like this. It's okay. I'm not here to please everybody. True art is non-thinking. True art has an element of non-duality. True art is direct. It cuts like a sword. It doesn't matter how you paint, whether you do abstract realism, whatever you do, interpretation work, representational. It doesn't matter what it is. Even if you do conceptual work, whatever you do, it doesn't matter. Maybe if you do conceptual work, it might be a little bit harder because you're using your mind a lot. But true art is about non-mind, no thing. It's about nothing, no thing. True art is experiential. It's a type of philosophy that is forgotten because we got lost in thinking. We got lost in René Descartes' period of I think, therefore I am. True art is not thinking. True art is experiential. True art is freedom. It's true freedom, not like the freedom of Mr. Sartre. It's not freedom in some aspects and not in others. True art is complete freedom. It's a different type of experience. And true art is the same art that if you're a father, when you see your child for the first time, that is true art. If you're in love and you see your beloved, you haven't seen your beloved in a few days, and you see your beloved and you're madly in love, that is true art. True art is when you've had enough and you see you see a tree and you fucking love it and you don't know why. You know, there's I don't know, unsettling in your life or whatever, and you sit there and you look at a flower and you love it and you have no idea why. That is true art. True art is it goes beyond the thinking. It's an interesting thing. So when I create artwork, that is something I started discovering in my process in creating artwork. You know, I was like, oh man, I see this. All of a sudden, I start creating artwork, and there's pockets, right? There's pockets, moments, little moments. There's pockets of peace. Of this, it's no longer inspiration, and it's no longer what do you call this? It's no longer happiness. It's no longer excitement. But I start with that. I start really happy, or I start whatever, however you start, right? When you're painting, maybe sometimes I start sometimes angry. I'm like, very rare, but sometimes I start angry. It's something, I'm thinking about something, and I'm like, but I start experiencing little pockets of peace. Right? Now, peace is not happiness. It looks sometimes like happiness, but it's not happiness. Peace is not happiness, and it's not. It almost looks indifferent. Peace can be very, 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 very well interpreted as indifference, but it's not. It's the ultimate state of being. It's the state in which you were born, and hopefully the state in which we will die. But peace is a baby's eyes, right? There's no judgment. The baby sees for the first time, and the baby's looking, and it's like. It's in a state of awe, right? Look at a baby when they're born. That's why I think, who said that? I think Jesus said that in the Bible. If you want to see the kingdom, run and see a baby. If you're an older person, go see a newborn. And so when I create artwork, it's in that state. It's pockets. It's not always, of course. I can't claim that, but it's pockets, little pockets. It's like, You know, like a little baby. When a baby, you carry a baby, and then they look at you, or they look at a dog or anything. They look at anything because they have no judgment, right? They don't even have an idea of themselves. They don't have a concept of themselves. That's why babies don't call themselves by their name. Little toddlers. They don't call themselves as I. They start calling themselves by their name. If the little baby's name is Cynthia, little baby Cynthia will say, Cynthia is tired. Cynthia is hungry. You know, because they have they're not split. They're not split. They live in they understand that the name is not them. Right? They understand that the name is not them. That they are them, not the name. So in creating artwork, this is a state that you start realizing. I think in creating anything, you could be an accountant, a mechanic. Maybe it might be a little bit harder. I don't know. But in creating artwork, I find those little moments of peace. Athletes call those moments the zone. They call it the zone, but it's the highest state of awareness. It's when all thinking has rested, and all you're doing is not really doing. Your being, your beingness is so heightened, right? It's not that it's raised. It's who you are. It's like electricity. You don't have a lot of electricity and a little bit of electricity. Electricity is electricity, right? It's the same thing in your beingness. So when you create artwork, you tap those moments. You tap those moments of truth. But they're true moments, And this is why I started this video talking about Monet, because Monet I was able to recognize that when I read that quote, I was like, I got it. I see what this guy's talking about. When you're painting something, you cannot name it, because if you name it, you're conceptualizing it. If you're conceptualizing it, you're no longer seeing it. There's no way in hell you're seeing it. This is why marriages, this is why friendships, this is why things deteriorate. Because you're no longer seeing the person, you're seeing the person's past, you're seeing the person's experience, you're seeing the person's meaning, which is the worst thing, right? You're seeing the person's meaning, not the person itself. You're looking at the meaning of the person. And an artist cannot be an artist if the artist is looking at the meaning. You cannot look at the meaning. It has to be the object itself or the subject itself. That's why I said true art cuts like a sword. Right? You have to cut through the bullshit, and you have to see it. And this doesn't require any special powers. All it requires is for you to silence your mind, just to be quiet, right? To have your mind quiet. That's all. That the only requirement is to quiet your mind. That's the only requirement, and then you start seeing things as they are. Right? Because the thinking doesn't allow you to. That's why. That's why Monet said it. You name it, and then you start thinking about what is a tree supposed to look like. What is a body of water supposed to look like? Well, now you're fucked because now you're thinking about it. You're no longer seeing the water. That's why many people can't paint. No matter how many years they've been painting, they can't paint because they can't stop conceptualizing. Truly paint. They can, it looks like they're painting, but they're not painting. I know they're not. I've been on that bandwagon. And they've been painting for 30 years, and they're still not painting. And they wonder, why can I not paint? And they know it too. They know it deep down inside. Many know it. I know because I knew it. It looks like you're painting. You're grabbing paint and you're putting, paint on a canvas. You're brushing with a, but you're not really painting. You're stuck in your head. You're conceptualizing. And in order to truly paint, you cannot conceptualize. When you have those little moments, those little pockets where you're not conceptualizing, you're in awe of your creations. You love your creations. You become a sort of like you understand God in that moment, in a little pocket, right? You become a creator in that moment. So you become a tiny, teeny, tiny little micro creator, right? You created something. You were able to bring something from the space that there's nothing, right? The unborn. You were able to suck something out into existence. See, you can't create something from something. It has to be from nothing. And that's why I say art is that way. I know I'm talking about some esoteric shit here, but it's early. I can do it. You can't create something from something else. That's just shaping something. Creating something from something else is shaping. That's not creating. Creating is from nothing. It has to come from nothing. Creation cannot occur from something. It just can't. It doesn't work that way. That's shaping something. So if you're painting and you're thinking about, what this means, what that means, what the sky means. If the sky, it's when it's raining, or when the clouds are big, the stratus clouds, and on and on. I've been through this whole shit. When you're thinking about all this stuff, you're not creating. You're picking fragmented pieces, and you're thinking about them, and you think that thinking about them makes you a better artist, but it doesn't. It actually makes you an inferior artist. It's when you stop thinking. That's why Degas said it. And Degas was not esoteric at all. Degas wasn't. Degas was a crazy hombre. Degas said, because again, those artists touch those pockets, right? Those moments that I'm talking to you guys about. Degas said, only when the artist does not know what he's doing is that he's doing something good. Only when he doesn't know what he's doing. Just think about that one for a second too. It's in the not knowing that you're actually grasping the reality of things. I'll leave you guys with that. I know I bored more than one or two of you to death, but it's pretty cool stuff. Being an artist is a hell of a thing. I'll leave you guys with that. My name's Jose Trujillo. Take care. I'll talk to you guys soon. Adios.